mine. Click on that one. You guys should be able to hear this as well. And click on Spooky Review Intro.
Welcome to another Rotn.
So, I hope that turned out pretty well. And it's another Rot movie review. And with me, as always, is Tier Alexander. Tier, how you doing?
The fuck was Dr. Claw?
I have actually been kind of practicing that at work for no fucking reason because, well, I work in a high decibel environment, so why not? We got what's been a returning guest, Will at Forge. Will, how you doing?
Happy to be here. It's been fun.
And of course, with us as always, Angela Ariaga. Angela, how you doing?
Doing all right. I have to say though, it for some reason it strikes me more as Tony Todd as Candyman than
Ooh,
Dr. Claw.
nice. Oh, I was trying for something Halloweenish, with it being the spooky month, and anyone who tries to tell me you can't say spooky, that has connotations from World War II and black people. Yeah, and it actually started with CIA spooks, so shut the fuck up, you idiot.
Hey, look, the Spook Waffle are a very important unit, all right?
I mean,
Don't get me
that
started.
that was a whole thing of like a fuck you to the Germans, so know your history.
Clearly.
But today we are reviewing the OG zombie movie, the 1968 Night of the Living Dead. Now, funny thing about this one is like because I know in our little chat, like Will is the one who brought it up. I think that said it's in the Return of the Living Dead. The first one is where they start having the whole thing of going after brains.
Yeah, it's the 1985 one.
Yeah, 1985. Because what's really funny about that one is like this first movie is actually an offshoot to both of those series, which take place in different universes. Because of the
I
two
didn't
guys,
know.
yeah, because of the two guys. Oh, because in the first movie they reference this movie if I remember correctly. But of the two people who worked on it was George A. Romero and someone else whose name I'm not really remembering because George A. Romero is the director. So I think one of the writers, I can't remember who, had the Living Dead portion of the name copyrighted. So that's why all the other ones for the George A. Romero ones are of the, or it's like, you have after this, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead.
Basically what happened was they ended up having a parting of the ways.
Yeah. And from everything
Romero got the night of part
Mhm.
of the package. The other guy got the Living Dead part of the package.
Okay.
Which is
So they kind
why
of divided the title.
all of Romero's movies have times of day
Mhm.
in them. And the other guy,
Well,
all of his
until
movies have
it's not
Living
all of
Dead.
them. It's the first three.
Mhm.
Because the following ones after that, because after or Dawn of the Dead, then Day of the Dead, you have Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and then Survival of the Dead. Now, Diary and Survival are a bit of a reboot of the series, and they're not bad in the whole scenario. But I kind of have there's parts of the original I love and parts that I hate. Like Barbara, I fucking hate Barbara. I loathe that woman's character. Granted, uh, Judith O'Day, great job at
Very
it. Fucking awesome. There's not complaining about the actress whatsoever. Character wise, hate the fucking character.
Well, you figure Barbara is a 60s,
Hippie chick
does need a
basically.
strong man.
And even John A. Russo was the other one, I want to say. Yeah, because he did Return of the
She
Living
was
Dead.
absolutely not a hippie. She was everything
Yeah.
but a hippie.
Johnny's
She's
got
more
the
of a-
keys.
Her brother was actually, believe it or not, a hippie.
Yeah, it's not surprising. Because like going into the Dead series and that whole thing, it's funny because the guy who did the directing and I think did the kind of the writing for the 1991 remake of Night of the Living Dead, which I like better because, well, Barbara's not a complete piece of
Barbara's not
shit.
a bitch.
Well, she's actually got character development. Ben's still a decent character, but he is not OG Ben. OG Ben, I love him. I will still say this: it's so funny. Majority of the times, in majority of these movies, my favorite character is the black guy.
Well, thank you.
I mean,
We tried to get-
you got Ben from Night of the Living Dead and the remake, and you have my absolute favorite from Dawn of the Dead, Peter. Peter is he's one of my favorite characters of all time.
I know I saw it. I'll be damned if I can remember who the characters are.
Peter's the tall black. He's really one of the only black guys in Dawn of the Dead. Now,
They kind of all mushed together.
he did get two actors that look very similar and everything. And what's really funny is this isn't. I think this was the start of more of the Romero having the darker ending to where it's actually meant to be more hopeless. Pretty much every of the Dead movie is supposed to be that way, to where even though there's people who may survive, it's kind of like it's implied that they're not going to be
Exactly how
lasting as long and whatnot. Now, what's really funny for the ending of the original to where Ben dies, that was actually Dwayne Jones. I think it's Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Or Dwan Jones' idea. He actually flat out said for back in that time for me, he's like, no, because like fucking straight up Romero was just like, yeah, I want to have basically a black lead and have him survive. And Jones was just like at the end, he's like, no, man, we got to have my character die. And he's like, why? He's like, well, because there's going to be some people who are going to be pissed that a black guy lives. Because, let's face it was the late 60s and that whole thing. There were racists back then just like there are now. That wouldn't have been as accepting of it. But it was also an earlier version of that, oh, fuck. Not lowered expectations. Not shifting expectations. I know I'm a couple drinks in, but I cannot fucking remember this shit. They do it
The
for fucking...
bigotry.
Not bigotry.
Describes,
It's not bigotry of low
describes-
expectations.
What, subverting?
Subverting expectations. Thank you. The thing that they do in everything nowadays. And that whole thing. Because it's like, okay, you see Ben go through all this shit and that he should survive. To then not survive.
Yeah.
And you do have to admit that it kind of fits into the culture of the time, especially if you throw in certain southern political fronts. Him being shot by law enforcement at the end of a catastrophe just kind of fits.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, and they were in Pennsylvania. They weren't in the South.
Yeah, they were in the South and everything. But it was still just meant to be that whole thing of like you still have racists in the North.
Yeah, but you don't want to turn off half of your potential viewer base.
And the whole thing is, and the biggest thing about it though was he didn't die because the guy that saw him when he heard something coming from the house, and he's like, there's a darkie in there. He's like, I heard something in that house, and they went off the whole thing of, we're going to be safe instead of sorry. So it was one person who survived, and then the only reason he died was because of someone who had good intentions, but didn't realize he just took an innocent life.
Well, that's one of the places where I've got to throw out there that Ben, who was, pretty clear thinking and level headed for most of it.
Mhm.
Real, smart, take charge kind of guy. Went through all of that and then forgot the very first thing that he used as evidence to others that he wasn't one.
His voice.
Yeah, the zombies don't talk.
Mhm.
So if he had just cried out to him, "Hey, I'm in here, help, I'm in here."
I think in that whole situation, he was also worried that what he was hearing, the zombies may have. Oh well, in this movie, when they got to the point of naming them, they called them ghouls.
Yeah.
In that whole thing, the ghouls may have overtaken the people that were shooting.
Maybe, but it's one of those. There are people out there with guns.
Yeah.
Be careful.
And now I know that most people aren't going to care about this. Isn't one thing. I will say I love the fact that they actually threw in a Winchester model 1894 3030.
Mm-hmm.
That was the lever gun that he was using. A fucking classic lever action. Otherwise, most of the other rifles that were used were 303 Enfields. Although I will openly admit that this movie and the remake always make me want a Smith & Wesson Model 10. Just because it's a classic law enforcement gun.
I could see that.
And you'll grab a couple of my revolvers that have snap caps in them for this thing, because I think you always should. Even if you own like an airsoft gun, you're watching a zombie movie, you gotta have the gun with like fake bullets in it, or the fake gun that you can go and aim at a zombie's head while you're watching the movie.
Just in case. You never know.
I mean, if you have an airsoft gun, it's not going to do you as much good. Yeah,
but it's less likely to damage your monitor though. So
yeah. Well, depending on which one you get, some of them can put out a freaking BB well enough to fuck up your screen. Now, it's not going to put a hole in your screen.
So maybe I should get the gun from one alarm clock that I have.
Get the duck hunt zapper.
I've actually got an alarm clock that uses essentially a light gun to snooze it or turn it off.
Yeah, I've seen those.
I had to stop using it because I had to shut it off in my sleep.
That was actually one of the reasons for the longest time I legitimately had to take my old alarm clock that it was loud as all hell and put it on the other side of the room because I would turn it off in my sleep.
Yeah. Only I got an alarm clock that you can turn off from across the room, thinking there's no way I could turn this one off in my sleep. I did it.
Well,
more than once.
In that situation, you had to put the zapper gun further away. Now, the one I will never buy because I would break the fucking thing is that alarm clock that it's got wheels and it's a puzzle. So as soon as it starts going off, it starts rolling away. And then you have to solve
it runs away and hides itself.
And then you have to solve the puzzle as well to turn it off. I'm like, I'd break that son of a bitch.
I'm trying to sleep, motherfucker. Goddamn.
But on another note that you might find pretty funny for this one, I want to say I've done a majority of the Dead films. I'm not sure of the Living Dead one, but whenever they show them like eating the zombies eating something, do you know what that actually is? Especially for the black and white. It is ham covered with Hershey syrup.
Yeah.
The Hershey syrup is the simulated. Oh, dude, from what I was reading and saw and some of that shit, the actors were like, it was fucking disgusting.
Yes, it is.
Oh, well.
Look, there's a thing of like chocolate covered bacon and whatnot that I've heard of that wouldn't like because of doing like the sweet and salty and whatnot. Not my thing. But
I tried it. It's not bad. I'd rather have like chocolate covered peanuts or something.
chocolate covered pretzels. If you want to do
Chocolate
that.
covered
Oh,
cashews aren't bad,
definitely.
but if you want something that's really bad for you, but is really fucking good, and if you've never had it, I highly recommend it, but only get it in really, really small batches. And that is chocolate covered caramel corn.
I'm gonna say no to all that because chocolate will kill me.
I think one serving of that would be enough to kill me a dozen times over again.
Oh, I forgot. I'm on the stream with like 2 diabetics.
I'm not diabetic. I just can't take. I can't handle chocolate.
Right, you're now like a type 3 or 3.5 diabetic.
Go to hell. I'm a type 9 diabetic.
Dude, my
I
like
have had zebra corn before. It's wonderful.
yeah, like
I mean, I would do chocolate covered caramel corn, and I would die. I die
No,
happy, but I would die.
it's not that I'll die from that. My blood sugar is just that chocolate does not agree with my system. Like I will go to the bathroom and I'll be in there forever.
so basically Tier's gonna, if he does that, he's gonna have to do that and then have some like take Imodium right before that or something.
I'll be there praying for death. Dear God, kill me! Oh God!
Take 2 Imodium before and 2 Imodium after, and
And then when you want to clear it
You
back
could
out, go
always
get yourself some
sprinkle
street
it with
tacos.
Imodium and
or Taco Bell.
So I normally don't have a
Y'all
problem
just
with
want to
Taco
come
Bell
and
unless I get
see
their
a
quote
man.
unquote steak, because that their steak is a waste in my opinion.
They're trying
yeah,
to
it's kind
asada.
of sad.
Oh, and I went there the other night. They had gotten a bunch of DoorDash orders and whatnot, so they were out of chicken and beef at the time. And I was just like, holy shit. I'm not mad at y'all, but holy fuck.
That's heresy.
Time for the cheese quesadilla.
That's what I should have gone with, but it's like, oh, they're like, oh, on this one, we'll let you go with steak with no upcharge. And I was like, okay. And that's what I ate last night during tier stream for a little bit. And it's just like, I am never doing that again. If they're like, all we have a steak, been like, oh, damn, that sucks. Well,
Catch you
sorry about that.
tomorrow.
Y'all have a good day, and hopefully
Guess
your
I'm
next
going to
night.
Chipotle.
Chipotle's not open at midnight 30.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah,
ass.
that's the problem.
And if I'm gonna go get like Mexican or Tex-Mex, there's another place by me that's exponentially better.
Taco Bell is better than Chipotle.
I
Chipotle's
basically had to swear off Tex-Mex, so I mean,
Chipotle's not bad, but honestly, if you're gonna go to Chipotle, get the fucking bowl.
Yeah.
I don't like Chipotle.
And if you're
The burrito is filler.
I will say this: if you're in Texas and you're around Lubbock, Texas, don't go to Chipotle. Go to a place called Freebirds. They're another build-your-own burrito type place, but they have exponentially more options to put in your burrito.
So, back in the heyday, we had a place called California Tortilla.
But going back to the movie, we're going to get away from the food thing because this is not a food stream. I know you want to talk about a place you loved, but this is not a food stream. We're supposed to be talking about a zombie movie that apparently all of us, for the most part, actually really like. There's not much I would consider wrong with it. I don't like Barbara, but at the time, it's great. Cooper is a fucking asshole, and his death is completely well deserved.
yes.
But it's that whole thing, like, because that's Carl Hardman. I can't complain. Yeah, I will say because it's 1968, you have a little bit more of the dramatic overacting, but still, it's just a genuinely good movie, a good cast, and just,
It is a genuinely good time.
the characters
Yeah.
you're supposed to hate, you hate. The characters you're supposed to like, you like.
Yeah.
And the characters you're supposed to be a bit more indifferent to, you are indifferent to.
Like, I'm indifferent to Bob. Barbara didn't. I didn't mind Barbara. Cooper, the asshat, really got to me. Like, after he slapped her, she calmed down somewhat.
Well, after he slapped
was
Barbara,
still
she was fucking
catatonic,
yeah,
man.
she was catatonic until right near the end of the whole thing. Yeah, like at the end of the movie before she gets grabbed by her zombie brother.
You can't
He
start the
came to
car.
get her.
Johnny has the keys.
He came to get her.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Well, now it's
Slightly
I'm
off
coming.
topic.
I'm coming for you, Barbara.
Yeah, so now it's
but
I'm coming
Say-
for you, Barbara.
Slightly off topic, but every single time I work in a call center, and every single time the caller is named Barbara, that's what I say. On mute, but that's what I say. They're coming for you, Barbara.
oh, jeez.
You're going to send out a repair person. They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It's where my brain goes every single time.
Mm.
And this is why I do. I love this movie. It's got a issue common to the 60s and 50s and 70s kind of thing that drives kids from the I'm not a kid of the 90s, but drives kids from the 90s and 2000s and up nuts. The pacing is a little slower. We're used to fast-paced movies today.
Bro, one of my other favorite movies is the original Death Wish, and that movie is slow as fuck. There are some movies that are a great slow burn, and there are some movies that do need a faster pacing. And the problem is trying to hit that properly. Something like this of like Night of the Living Dead, it needs to be a bit slower of a one. Something like Resident Evil needs to be a bit faster paced because it is meant to be a bit more action oriented.
Yeah, it doesn't I gotta say, it doesn't drag on. The slow is mostly in the start, and there's one or two spots in the middle where it's like that could have been a little bit faster, but it's not badly paced.
Yeah.
It's never put me to sleep. It's never had me do, oh my, what did I just watch? And why?
Yeah.
Because there are movies that have done that.
And I will still say this, for the remake, other than the chick they got to play Barbara, they got quite a few actors that looked a lot like the original actors.
I'm trying to think of the last time I watched the remake.
That's
Well,
why.
speaking of Tony Todd, Tony Todd was Ben in the remake.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it, and the whole thing. It's like I would say, oh well, after watching Tremors: A Cold Day in Hell, we could go to the remake. But I was like, no, like, well, I love the remake, and I do. I really want to introduce some other people to Bullets for the Dead.
I gotta tell you, I'm liking the sound of Bullets for the Dead. So I mean,
because like.
Yeah,
it accumulates so much of what I love, and because like that's the whole thing of
Zombies in the Old West.
Zombies in the Old West
And guns.
and it's a guns, and one of the characters
it has to have guns.
and you have a gunslinger and criminals.
it sounds like Gallow Walkers.
I'd have to look into that one again because I don't remember that.
say it's been a long time since I watched Gallow Walkers, so
I haven't seen that one.
Gallow Walkers?
But like with this movie,
Correct.
where it started for this whole situation of the zombie movies, the reason why they were slow was because the zombies were slow because it was supposed to be related to that slow impending doom.
mhm.
But yes, you could outrun it for a while, but no matter what, it was a slow impending doom that would always catch up with you. It's the reason why Romero really hated the remakes of Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, which both coincidentally have Ving Rhames in them. I still have yet to watch the sequel to the remake of Day of the Dead, but I don't necessarily completely hate the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead. I do have some other remarks with it that have just irked me a bit.
Yeah, the thing with the slow zombies, you get to that, but it's that slow, inexorable. It's like you can stay ahead of them for a while, but forever they don't stop.
Yeah, Well, because what the thing is meant to be is they don't rest, they don't sleep, so they're on the constant move comparatively to, the fast zombies. Now, I've liked certain movies that have had it that like the recently deceased can go through and move quicker. And even as you go through in the zombie movies, some of them tend to actually pick up a little bit more, especially when you get to Land of the Dead, where they continue a bit more on with like Bud, the smart zombie.
Hmm.
Which one was it? Return of the Living Dead or two? Send more paramedics.
Yeah, that was the original Return of the Living Dead, if I remember correctly.
I always love that line too.
Which is really funny because if you look at that one, like at least in the Romero series, there is a plausibility of eventually the zombies being completely done for. But if you pay attention to how it is in the Return of the Living Dead series, there's no way to get out of it. Because the way the thing goes is like the only way to properly kill them is to cremate the bodies. Cremating the bodies puts it in the smoke, puts it in the atmosphere, comes back down, reanimates more corpses.
Just releases the chemical back into the atmosphere, so you can't kill them. All you can do is contain them, which is what the army had done originally.
So you'll never escape. Great.
Yeah, like that's what the thing is. So that's where it's like the Living Dead one, Return of the Living Dead series, I think necessarily gets it wrong. Doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means
right.
Like that's too impending doom. You have to have the whole thing of like, there's a plausibility, but you have to understand that a lot like your odds are really bad. Because that's like when I asked Scribe, and I think it's one of the nights he had your boy Pat on, or it might have not been that one back in the Lords of the Night days. I had asked what his favorite George A. Romero movie was, because it's not R, because it's George R. Martin and George A. Romero. I fucked that up for years. And he actually brought up one that I've seen. It's a relatively good movie, but it ends like the Dead series does for the most part, and it's Martin. And that is a weird ass movie.
I've never seen Martin.
Martin is where it's supposed to be following a guy who is, from everything we're aware of, or it's like everything we know of, he's an actual vampire, but doesn't follow like a lot of the traditional vampire lore. Now, we're not talking sparkly vampires. But the really cool part that Romero does for it is like what's in the current day and age is always shown in color. But whenever the main character, Martin, is remembering something, it's always shown in black and white.
Now, that's an interesting effect.
Yeah, because, in that whole thing, it's an easy way to tell when it's a memory and when it's current day.
Right, the flashbacks versus the modern.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was actually a really cool way of it, having both in there. And I know Monkey wouldn't like that because, it's black and white.
And white.
And the whole thing for it. But yeah, apparently even for this thing, like as after this the first Night of the Living Dead came out, when the second one came out, they started actually having a series of it. They like for anyone who was cast on it, they actually had something similar that the Walking Dead copied to where to be a zombie there was actually a minimum, I think like a 2-week class on it. Except for Land of the Dead, because Land of the Dead was more of a guerrilla shoot than the other two, or the former two. Because Romero is pretty known for doing a lot of guerrilla shooting. And I don't mean like Harambe, I mean like lower budget and less time type stuff.
And I gotta say, I do like the idea of zombies that are slightly more functional the nearer they are to death time, and then degrade and become less capable and less functional.
Well, like he does go through a thing of that when you get further on. It's what happens with Bud You kind of start seeing a little bit of it, but that's mostly like directly after death in Dawn of the Dead. So you're still seeing some intelligence in the zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Bud to where he gets conditioned, and that whole thing. And then in Land of the Dead, you have the guy that black zombie that was originally a gas station worker who's known as Big Daddy.
Hmm.
And he's smarter because apparently the longer the zombie virus has been going, and that the brain starts to remap some of the pathways and whatnot. So he can't they've gotten to the point where they can actually kind of start to communicate. Like they can't talk in actual speech like they could in the Return of the Living Dead series of, send more paramedics. We want to eat brains to feel alive again.
To stop the pain.
Yeah, to stop the pain. Like they can feel, they grunt at each other. They learn how to do things in a bit. Otherwise, they just grunt and roar.
Well, and shit, in this one they were using tools. They picked up a stick and were beating on the doors.
Well,
In
that's
effect,
actually one of the
rocks.
that's one of the things they bring up in the Dawn of the Dead. One of the scientists is like even chimpanzees have been known to use the most rudimentary of tools.
but all right, so that implies some brain function because
Well, yes,
of my,
because the brain isn't completely dead. It's the reason why they say you have to destroy the
if
brain.
something is ravenous, it's
You're breaking up, Tier.
Say the brain is dead, but it hasn't stopped functioning.
No, it's not going into the first freaking Resident Evil movie where the basic motor functions and it's driven by the need to feed. And it's like, okay, that's kind of that. Now, the biggest thing for all of these is the fact there is it's a minor thing and it's never really shown, but there is always somewhat of a supernatural in there. It's science fiction, but if you look at it, majority of science fiction has somewhat of a supernatural into it. However,
not hard science. Not hard science.
That's why I said
science fiction.
I said science fiction.
Say hard science.
Yes, hard science fiction.
Which is very rare. Most science fiction is a big what if thing, so you have to have a lot of that stuff in there. That's why even for this, and they always, it's one of the reasons why they leave what causes the zombie outbreak unknown.
Yeah, it's
an
vague.
exponentially great thing.
Yeah, it's fairly vague.
It's one of my bigger criticisms of Zombieland. For the first one of, mad cow disease became mad human, which eventually became mad zombie. It's like, it's not as good, bro.
It's fresh, but possible.
Well, for what the mad cow thing had to do with, I think, with prions and whatnot. That's a whole other topic that I don't have enough understanding nor the degrees to get into. Quite literally,
I don't need.
Dude, prions are like a fucking wicked hell of a thing that will fuck you up.
Yeah, they will destroy you permanently, and they are essentially impossible to destroy in return. That's why it's like cows that are infected, you don't eat them. You can burn it to charcoal. They survive.
Yeah, they fucking drop it in the ground and they'll survive in the dirt.
Fuck.
But I mean, hell,
there's a reason why the process of quarantine and destruction is so careful and precise, because you cannot get these things out there. They would be the end of civilization.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're pushing towards that as well with the amount of antibiotics we use, antibacterial soap.
Don't even get me started.
Antibacterial soap, outside of anything other than a surgical ward, in all reality, really it's just a surgical ward, is completely unnecessary, because you're just putting more antibiotics into the thing, which is going to let more freaking bacteria become resistant to it faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason
Yeah,
why now closer to nowadays people are getting like when they get sick, it's getting a bit worse and stuff. People is because they're not being introduced to that shit, so their immune system is trash.
yeah, I go one step exactly in the direction of antibacterial. I actually use a Castile soap with tea tree oil, and
Mm-hmm.
that is antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. And so far, there is no bacteria in nature that has been able to mutate to survive it. So I don't wash my hands with it. I take a shower with the stuff, and that's it.
I'm about to
And
go
then I
back to
go,
when this hand soap I have in my bathroom runs out. I'm gonna go back to what I was doing before, and I'm just gonna fill it up with dish soap. It works wonders to
Yeah.
wash your hands with. Never had an issue before.
yeah. Actually, been
But
pondering some
going
good
back,
pine tar soap.
going back to this movie, I still find it funny because it's one of the few things to where, for some odd reason, they always want to pull that whole thing of like, we need to go into the basement. It's like, bro, okay, it's currently 2023, and I hate using the current year thing. We're not dealing with shriekers, and we're not dealing with ass blasters. We're not dealing with really much of anything anymore to where you can't be above. Like, this isn't even the birds and whatnot. So higher ground is the smarter bet to go with, which is why, like I said, I have thought about this way more than I should have, because the whole thing predominantly for thinking of how you're going to survive the zombie apocalypse is more of a thought experiment of looking at a situation that in most cases is going to be either a not necessarily a SHTF or shit hit the fan moment. It's going to be more of a ROWL or no WORL without rule of law. And it's plausible that it could be a Tiatuaki moment. And I got that one from Paul Harrell. And the easiest way to remember Tiatuaki is because it's the end of the world as we know it.
And I feel
The thing is, you take a look at it from a perspective. You know, the if you had a zombie apocalypse in the real world environment, um, from the notion of most things that could potentially cause it, you have the problem is like most of the biological functions that keep us living in our environments that run from hot to cold and back uh, aren't working in those bodies. So, dude, I live in Michigan. If it's summer or winter, the zombie apocalypse is a weekend.
Yeah. And it also
Stay,
falls into the whole thing like there's a
stay
reason.
in, watch movies.
There's a reason
Yeah.
why these things always have to take place in a universe that never had it. Because if you look at
Right.
our universe, the only way a zombie apocalypse would be able to legitimately succeed is it would have to hit like at least like, the
Rapidly.
majority of the major cities.
No, it would have to animate all the dead all at once and overwhelm the level.
Well,
It would
Well,
have to be an onslaught.
here's the thing. For majority of like the actual dead that haven't been cremated, they're buried too far. And
In
most
locked in
of
concrete vaults.
they're buried 6 feet, so you're not going to smell them. And most people don't realize that the bacteria that are inside you, because yes, you have bacteria inside you and everything. We quite literally have formed a symbiotic relationship with some bacteria and viruses and whatnot. They're the reason why people bloat when they decompose. So the
Because they're
whole
still propagating.
so the whole thing of being able to like reanimate the dead that have been dead for that long to where you're basically going to have skeletons come up would have to be entirely supernatural. Period, plain and simple.
Yes.
There is no avoidance of it. Otherwise, it would have to be something to be closer to like, oh shit, the fuck. 28 Days Later. I wanted to say 30 Days. No, that's a vampire movie.
28 Days
Yeah.
Later, the Rage Virus.
The Rage Virus. The problem with the Rage Virus, from a lot of what I saw, and like Roanoke Gaming does a very good thing over it, for how fast it is and everything, it would actually burn out the body too fast for it to reproduce. Like, the zombie virus would evolve like a lot of other like all viruses tend to, because the longer it can survive in a host and the host can survive, the better chance it has to survive.
Well, the thing
So
with that
it would
is
be
those were
cheaper.
specifically not dead.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of your zombie apocalypse, you're dealing with the dead, and dead bodies just don't survive hot summer days or
Well, plus you're also looking
cold
at
winter
something,
nights.
if it's something to where it reaches rigor mortis and that whole thing, for it to apply any pressure to its arms or legs, it has a higher plausibility of muscle rupturing.
right.
So that strength that it would be able to have would be diminished so much, which is the only reason why, like, freshly dead turned into that would be like that, like kind of dead. And the reason why I still say supernatural is because in all reality, you should be able to shoot them in the heart and them to die, because you'd still have to have blood flowing to move stuff through.
Well, yes and no. If you're dealing with everything that's there is decaying anyway.
Well, it falls in that whole thing, like I said, like we were talking about, for
Well, I mean,
how the actual,
nutrients and-
how the dead are. If the brain were reanimated and it was not, and the body was not pumping blood, it would not be able to move, because you still have things that need that. It would only be able to
Right.
survive for probably maybe a day at most, and then it's going to be too degraded to be able to move properly.
Like I said, the zombie apocalypse would be like a weekend.
Well, dude, that I'm saying that's even in like spring and fall.
Right.
Because as soon as it gets to where the bacteria that work in tandem with how our body works, no longer, or it's like, that stave it off from doing what it would normally do, would do that, the body is going to go in through and just decay at a much sharper rate. And with it being outside of that, because like once you get to summer in any place in the fucking states, other than like Alaska, the brain's going to reach putrefaction in a matter of like 2 days. You go further
Or
south,
in
it's
the
be faster.
winter, it doesn't have anything to
Stop it from freezing.
keep and maintain body heat, so it would freeze. And that's one of the things from the book of World War Z. Colder climates did better through the winter because the zombies would freeze.
Yeah. Then all you gotta do is, as they freeze, you don't even have to freaking shoot them. You just walk up with a melee item.
Yep.
Just hit him with a hammer, shatter him.
Yep.
Break them down with a bat.
Yep.
So yeah, I get what you. There's always something that borders on the
That's what,
supernatural, and you get the balance of that. The whole notion of any significantly advanced science is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
So,
but it's still
you get-
that whole thing for everything we know of currently in the body, the way
Right.
the human
It's-
body works. Like, the only thing I can legitimately think of to get it that way would have to be magic or some sort of alien tech.
Yeah, you have something that is outside our understanding and experience.
Yeah.
Which leaves it into the realm of supernatural,
Mhm.
true magic, or
Science we don't
alien
understand.
tech, science beyond our knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kind of played it to this from some weird space radiation.
Yeah. Well, not just
But that was
space.
still speculation of what was causing it.
Well, not just space radiation. The plausibility that the thing that was up there came back down and had something on it that was from space that was affecting people wrong.
Right.
Yeah, they
Which
said
borders on
was
that
a
edge
probe that
of
went it was a probe that went to Venus and it came back, if I'm not
Which
mistaken.
yeah,
it's
which
the
runs on
funniest
the
part of
edge
that
of
is
that
like, okay, it's like,
alien tech, alien tech, space tech, unknown exploration tech, or just a biological element out there that we don't understand because it's not native to our planet.
and it's really funny because it's like, okay, this thing went around Venus, and again, it's that whole thing. We're looking at this through modern eyes comparatively, but this was also known even like 30 years ago, probably. But again, this is a 1968 film, and if anyone who's watched this in the future, because I think it's mostly us who have this up in a secondary window, is saying spoilers. This movie is from 1960 fucking 8. This movie is older than every single person on this panel.
If you haven't watched it yet, it's your own fault.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, why are you listening to me? Go out and watch this thing first.
Go watch it now.
It's an hour and 45 minutes of your time, and it's fucking October. It's fucking worth it. And if you want to,
it's entertaining.
And if you bitch about pacing, you're a bitch.
Night. Get a big bowl of popcorn. Put some.
Heck, get 2 bowls of popcorn.
Or frozen Charleston Chews in there.
Every time I hear Charleston Chew, all I can think of is Futurama.
And
the State of the Union has been brought to us by the great taste of Charleston Chew.
Yeah, go out, get a big bowl of popcorn or 2. Prepare them your favorite way, maybe 2 different ways. This one's got the cheese sprinkles, and that one's got butter and salt.
Let's put it this way as well. Even if, like, let's just say you're a bit younger, you're around mine and Tears' age of that, like, we're in our technically later 30s because we're both 37.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing.
So young.
Yeah, I know. Just so young. Body's been through broken and everything. But, like, get a couple, if you can, get a couple friends there and whatnot. Do a Discord watch party or whatever the kids are doing. I know Discord works for that. And, you guys can watch it and bullshit about it and whatnot. But, like, seriously, sit down and watch. I still recommend all of the George A. Romero movies for that. So, like I said, Survival of the Dead, or not Survival, Diary of the Dead is good, but you have to be in the right mindset because you have to realize it is the closest to thing of like what would happen during a zombie apocalypse. The entire story is done via handheld cameras. Because
found footage.
It sort of, because there are a couple of them who survive, from what I remember. But basically, it starts off with it's supposed to be they're making a horror movie of with the mummy in it, and then because of the whole thing happening, they go through and everything is through that. So you start seeing a couple different cameras in there. And plus, you also have an Amish dude who's a mute and he wields dynamite and a scythe.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm going to have to.
And then
I don't know if I've seen this one or not.
And then what's really funny is that Survival of the Dead is actually the direct sequel to Diary of the Dead. And what's funny is one of the main characters from Survival of the Dead, he makes an appearance in Survival of the Dead, and he also makes an appearance in Land of the Dead. Which Land of the Dead has John Leguizamo in it and another gentleman as well, who played Bowser in the original Dennis Hopper.
The moment you said Bowser, I instantly know who you're talking about. Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, you got John Leguizamo, Robert Joy, Eugene Clark is the one who plays Big Daddy. Freaking Dennis Hopper, Asia Argento.
Ugh.
Oh yay!
She plays a character
hate it.
called Slack, who, if I remember correctly, dies.
Yay! I like it already.
Ah, it just got better.
I know it went from being
It's been a
Amber
bit since I've
Heard's
seen this one.
older sister.
Like it's
Mhm.
it's a fun movie. It's also got Boyd Banks in it. He plays a role. It's a fun movie.
What's the one with Mackay Pfeiffer? Which the one where they're in the shopping mall?
That
Uh,
is, I believe, Dawn of the Dead.
Well, I don't know if the original Dawn of the Dead has that person that you're
Yeah.
talking about. Maybe the
no, I'm
remake.
talking about
The one with
the remake.
and
The
Yeah.
remake is Dawn of the
Dawn
Dead.
of-
Holly.
Both Dawn of
Dawn
the
of the
Deads are
Dead
dead
is a
in the
shopping
mall.
mall. Yeah.
Where you got the zombie baby.
Yeah, that's the remake of Dawn of the
That's
Dead.
the remake.
That is one of the ones that Romero hated because he didn't like the fast zombies.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Now, one of the big things I will say that is one of my issues with some of these movies is the fact that you start seeing more modern tech as the movies progress. And like a little bit of that I can understand. But then you start seeing some more modern firearms, and I'm like, bro, if this is supposed to have been the one that starts, like, we're having it say that it started in the 1968, so we're looking at around the beginning of, like, the late 60s to early 70s when this started. No one is going to go and develop the HKG-36 fucking assault rifle.
Suspension of disbelief.
Bro, I have this is the thing of being a firearms enthusiast. I do have a problem with weapons that are most likely going to be anarchistic in a world to where they're going to be trying to use the weapons they have, not to try to develop new technology of polymer firearms and different things to make new guns.
Sometimes you just gotta use the suspension.
It's a suspension of disbelief for majority of people, but for when I've gone through too much. It's one of those things that it's like I've also watched a little bit too much Forgotten Weapons that it's just like no, bro, this takes me out of there. This is like watching Backdraft, I think it is, with a firefighter, especially with a good firefighter. They're gonna be like, no, they're gonna watch that like for the director that they want to. Come on, you motherfucker.
I will send you to Jesus.
There we go. Took forever. It was being
I will send you to Jesus.
Or, watching shit with, like, the military, especially when it's supposed to be, like, Navy SEALs was, like, special ops guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at that, and they're just like...
Degenerates like you belong on a cross.
Wow.
Or watching 90%, I would probably say, like, closer to, like, 98% of movies or TV shows, when they talk about how someone's going to be hacking something, and it has absolutely... It's not that, like, the closest... From everything I'm aware of, like, the one that's done the closest is Swordfish.
Yeah, probably the closest that
Like,
I've
don't get
seen.
me wrong. I love NCIS, and I have a suspension of disbelief because I don't understand that. But even I know that it's bullshit.
Yeah,
I will have to. Yeah.
You don't get better results by putting two people on the same keyboard for the same computer. It doesn't make you faster.
No.
It does. I don't care how in sync you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the stuff like Hackers, the actual movie Hackers, some of the stuff that they did was
Hack
just
the planet!
absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Type furiously.
Antitrust. So Sneakers was a great movie for that kind of thing and other stuff, but they did the whole social engineering.
Well, that was like there was a pretty
all the research.
Oh god, I can't remember what the fucking movie was called. Where it's like it was supposed to be it's like kind of like doing a thing of like where if you look at it after Microsoft gets big, majority of their tech that they are is because they either buy it's like it's supposed to be because most people think that they buy out the person who invents something new, so they have the access to it.
That is actually what they do a lot of the time.
Well, the other thing that was supposed to be that it was shown was that if the person didn't take the offer, they would actually, if they knew enough people didn't know about it.
Yeah,
They
I
would
think that's
kill the
antitrust.
Yeah, antitrust.
Yeah.
That was actually a pretty fun movie.
Yeah,
Weird as
and
hell.
it didn't go absolutely crazy on the super Hollywood hacker things. I love it. It was like I think it was an HKCD comic, where it's like in movies, hacker. Oh no, do this. In real life, oh no, hacker. Go over to the router, pull the plug.
What was the movie where they had the guy who plays Garth from Supernatural? He takes a freaking stick of chewing gum, takes the chewing gum. I think that was the core.
The core.
Yeah.
The thing is, with the phones from the time, I watched that with the whole director's thing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What he did with the phones from the time and the cell providers at the time actually would work if you did it right.
Really?
Wait, you're Siri dog?
Yes. 100% serious.
Holy shit!
Yeah, we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you
how to do exactly it. Obviously,
how to do this and the details and everything, but it actually works.
Okay, that shit I respect, because that was like one of the biggest things. And I'm not a Star Trek fan, that I respect about OG Star Trek was like it had to be at least predominantly, not just theoretically possible, but like almost provably possible.
Reasonably plausible.
Reasonably plausible. So theoretically possible would be better. Okay.
So OG Star Trek.
Yeah, the comb, the gum wrapper, and the cell phone, if you entered the right code and got it to play the right tone, would at the phones and the carriers at the time would give you free calling for life.
That's fucking funnier now.
So it was one of those things that's like, because I had the movie and then I watched it with the director's comments like, yeah, we're not telling you how to do this, but that's real.
That is awesome.
So like, yeah, no, I love getting movies with director's commentary and the actor's commentary. You can find some of the background stuff, and if I really enjoy the movie, I'll watch it with the commentary on. It
has to be the
some
right
of those
movie.
Things.
So that's like, I know I did that with John Wick, the first John Wick. Of like,
I should have with John Wick, but I don't think I actually have it. A friend bought it, and
with John Wick,
we watched it together.
The first one, Keanu Reeves spent like, I think it was damn near, it's like 5 to 6 months, 5 to 6. It's like 5 to 6 days a week, 12-hour days, working with the stunt coordinators and the stuntmen and everything to get all of that shit, because getting a stuntman that's his size is a lot harder. It wasn't because Keanu Reeves was pulling, Tom Cruise or someone else where it's like, I do my own stunts. He's a bit more like Donnie Trejo, to where he's like, why am I going to take someone else's job away from them? Type thing. But, with Keanu Reeves' size, or it's like height and build, it's hard to find someone that height and build.
And for some of the things, you unless you're going to toss off camera angles, you've just got to be the person doing it.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the things that they really paid attention to, or he paid attention to in some of the action scenes, like with the bike, is, actually keeping it realistic movements for what you do for controlling the bike and controlling the throttle and everything. He pays attention to the small details.
Well, yeah, because he knows there's people that are going to pay attention to that. So that's why, like I said, there's issues that I have predominantly with the remake of Dawn of the Dead. It's, for the most part, a fun movie, but majority of zombie movies, especially if you're looking at the Dead series, other than the Return of the Living Dead series, they're meant to be that like slow dwelge into madness before a major altercation or confrontation with zombies. Like you'll have a minor, it's like you'll have a minor, somewhat major confrontation, and then you have that slow descent into it. Because like I really think Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, does it the best. Where it's like, you know, they have the whole thing that happens, and they go through and clear out the freaking zombies, and then everything else starts to go. When you start to see it's more of a psychological horror than it is an actual zombie.
Honestly, I believe like the people are more the antagonists than the actual zombies. Think
That's
about it.
really kind of the
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, I will be back in a moment. Please continue.
That's one
Like
of the points.
like we'll take the movie we just watched. Fucking honestly, most of the action comes from the interaction between Asshat and Ben. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it
Mr.
is
Cooper.
yeah, it is more them two going at it than it is actually like the if you were to take the zombies out of the situation, like if you would have had the zombies completely out of the situation and have like it was some unnamed natural disaster or some unnamed event, and these two are fighting, it would you could still have the movie. Like the movie wouldn't change much,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
could have very close to the same movie dealing with like a nuclear war and fallout situation and being trapped in the same house and disagreeing about the best way to survive. Um,
Yeah,
you could put it with
Be
a
almost the exact same film.
chemical or
it
biological
really,
contaminant outside. It would be very, very similar movie. Um, so you get kind of the universal tension there.
Well,
yeah. So
going to what
go,
you know, it was Terry saying and Andrew's kind of saying as well. It's like humans are the antagonists and the protagonists of this. And if you really want to look at this, the zombies aren't good or evil. Not really until you get to more of the Land of the Dead, and they're still not necessarily that good or evil. They're
all right.
just the opposite. Oh,
So
hold on. They're more of the opposite side of the coin. They're just a driving factor. They're meant to be that looming, impending doom type thing. Everything else is brought upon by a person.
all
Yeah,
right.
they push the environmental risks that bring out people at their best and at their worst.
Yes.
All right, so this is I can easily explain this. In the story, you have what is called an antagonist, a protagonist, and a villain. The villain does not have to be the same as the antagonist. You know, the antagonist is just the one that drives the plot. You know, like I'll use the best example I can: Beauty and the Beast. Who is the villain in that story?
Gaston.
In the Disney
No,
version,
it's
Gaston.
nope. It is Beast. The Beast is the villain. He does all the negative action to the protagonist. However, the antagonist is Gaston. He drives the
Well,
plot.
I'd have said the villain was the Enchantress because, you know, she showed up, demanded to be let in, and be given special treatment to a prince that was like
The
8 years old.
she never encounters the protagonist. She can't drive the plot forward. She never encounters Belle, who is the protagonist. Therefore, she can't be the antagonist. She does not drive the plot. The Beast does. Her interaction with the Beast, sorry, her interaction with Gaston drives the plot, right? Gaston drives the plot.
Yes and no. I mean, really, it's
He
more of
does.
her father who drives the
Um,
plot because he's the one who goes and fucks up to where he gets to Beast Castle, and then, you know, because of
In the
whatever.
end, in the end, who is the one that the protagonist defeats? It's Gaston. Well, not necessarily defeats. Beast puts his ass down. He puts himself down to be
Yeah.
honest.
Honestly,
But
I think that both Belle and the Beast as a unit are the protagonist, while the Enchantress and Gaston. are the characters.
Yeah, the beast is a protagonist, is
Um,
an imperfect protagonist, but he is.
But it's still
He's
I'm just
I
using that to illustrate a point. It is that you could take the zombies out. They drive the plot, and you could still have them. But the villains in the story are literally asshat and his indecision, his antagonistic ways.
Yeah. Well,
You know
that's
him
basically all
second guessing.
majority of it of the Romero series. It's
You know,
I
in most zombie movies, that other than a quaint few, the zombies are not the actual villains
no,
or
they just
antagonists.
they are
a
the
plot device.
element. They're the element of the environment that causes
Mhm.
the humans to be
But
protagonist, antagonist, villain.
Plot
I
devices.
will actually say, in a way, this is all like the first Night of the Living Dead is also very reminiscent of like how they at least did the first season of the Walking Dead. Because if you look at it, for the most part, majority of the people are major personality archetypes.
really quick.
Mhm.
I unfortunately have to say goodnight. I am fading fast.
Alrighty, well
Oh.
it's approaching 1. I think it's been a little over an hour. We can call it here. This has been a fun movie, and we're just getting into now ridiculousness of like zombie movies and whatnot.
Zombie 101.
Now I'm gonna have to go through all the George Romero films again.
I mean, I recommend it.
I know.
It's one of the reasons why I liked Survival of the Dead, because the main character, who's actually a military dude and whatnot, that has a unit that kind of goes away, like his 2 favorite weapons are his 2 twin freaking SAAs. That's his favorite sidearm. And that whole thing. We're gonna call it. We'll be doing Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell next week. I think it's Cold Day in Hell.
Yay, Canada! Oh, Canada!
I wish we could get a
Yes.
Canadian here on, and that way we can
Trudeau
have the Canadian.
just wants you dead.
We can get the Canadian perspective. I don't know what Gabby's doing. She can't be doing shit.
I thought
Say,
Gabby was an
like,
American. I mean, we could like talk to like
Ella
Della,
Hayes.
or
Yeah.
I think is Sora Canadian or no?
Yeah,
Sora, that's the one I'm thinking of. My bad. Get those two mixed up.
I mean, they're not all Canadian. It's got a bunch of different things there. Yeah, we'll call it here. I think Jen's usually asleep around this time frame.
I know.
We'll call it here. It's been fun. I'll probably use the spooky review intro for the rest of the month, just because I think it's kind of fun.
It is so fun.
It is. Thank you,
And-
Dr. Claw, for doing the intro.
So happy to scare you to death.
Well, I still eventually got to figure out how like Sinatra and Drunkle and them, and Sinatra, Drunkle and probably like they make the backgrounds they have for their freaking, well, they use Streamlabs OBS. Like, I might reach out to TrippyCast because I know that dude can do some shit.
I know you said Polly. Polly spends a lot of time on his background.
If you don't watch TrippyCast, I highly recommend to go look at one of his streams. His stuff may look simple.
Mm-hmm.
He also made all of that himself, typically in paint.net.
Wow.
I swear he might give the starving autist a run for his money in the Spectrum.
All these content creators making me feel really inadequate.
I know.
Yeah,
God.
and especially because with a lot of them, other than a quaint few of them, I'm young, or it's like I'm older than most, or younger than a lot of them, and it's just like, how are you more technologically advanced than I am?
Man.
This is the reason why I use the mostly functioning idiot. And and that whole thing.
You have a life outside of the front of your computer.
Well, I also just have different interests and haven't dwelled into it as much as they had. Like I'm pretty sure like Skeptalk and a few of them would just, because I was listening to one of their the mini streams and they went on some technology shit and I'm like, that doesn't sound right, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
When they talk, some days I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
I know those were words.
I understood a lot of those words. Don't know what it all
Those
means.
are some big words.
In those orders. All right.
But we're gonna call it here. Have a good week, everyone.
Go see a movie.
If you haven't seen this movie, it's public domain. You can download it right off the Internet Archives. You can watch it for free. Enjoy it this week.
Yeah. 10/10 would recommend.
Totally.
I mean, I still say get pretty much all the George A. Romero series. They're fun movies.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
So have a good one, folks. We outie.